What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1998 Chevy Monte Carlo. Up front is a 3.1 liter V6, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this here Monte Carlo for a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, this car was just a part of normal life 2.5 decades ago. And because of that, clean examples are hard to come by because they got used and thrown away. Well, this is a fairly clean example, and I'm excited to share that with you today. But the second reason is a little strange, and I'll share with you at the end of the video. But before we get on to anything else, I have a website, ZackPradel.com, where you can buy stickers and other merchandise when it becomes available. You can also submit your own vehicle to be reviewed by me through a quick and easy submission form, and you get a video of your car just like this one. And you can read my behind-the-scenes blog to see what I'm filming before it comes out on the channel. But let's get back to that 3100 series V6 under the hood. Well, there was a couple engines offered in this 5th generation Monte Carlo. The 3100 series was the base engine, and then pre-1998, the upgraded engine was a 3.4 liter dual overhead cam V6, and later, 98 and 99, the upgraded engine was the 3.8 liter 3800 series that we've come to know and love from GM. So this is the base 3.1. It makes 160 horsepower and is actually a bored out modified version of the 2.8 liter that we saw in the late 80s, like in the Cadillac Cimarron that I reviewed earlier this year. And so while 3.1 might sound like a weird displacement, it was actually evolved from a different engine, just bored out, made a little bit bigger, made a little bit more power. Like I said, paired to it, 4-speed automatic transmission, nothing really crazy going on there. And last but not least, the Monte Carlo is front-wheel drive, which was a little controversial because 1995 marked the Monte Carlo coming back to Chevy. They ended it with the G-body in 1988 and then started producing the Lumina. Well, in 1995, they split the Lumina from 2- and 4-door. The 4-door was still the Lumina, but the 2-door became the Monte Carlo, bringing back a name that had been unused for the last couple of years. So some people were upset that it was front-wheel drive. This is the first generation of the Monte Carlo to be front-wheel drive, and the second to last generation of the Monte Carlo at all. With that out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a couple of gauges. On the left is my fuel and coolant temperature. In the center is my speedometer, and on the right is my tachometer. I really like the layout of these gauges. Very simple, very 90s GM that I've kind of come to know and love wholeheartedly. On the steering wheel, F-body Camaro fans will recognize it. On the left, I have my Seek preset AM and FM buttons, and on the right, I have my volume, play, and mute for the radio. Moving off to the left, up high, I do have my headlight switches, as well as a vent, a little cubby, and then I have my power trunk release. Instead of being in the glove box like earlier years, they actually moved it over to your left kneecap. Kind of interesting. Then moving out of the door, up at the very top, I do have my power mirrors, power windows, of which the driver's window is auto, and then we have the power locks down below that, and we get this sort of fake wood trim going along. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Moving into the center, I do have my climate controls, so this does get dual zone climate. This has to be the most theatrical dual zone button I've ever seen. It fades into red and fades into blue for the driver and the passenger. It's giant. It's taking up a lot of space because not all of them came with it. So they would fill that with something else for vehicles that weren't optioned with dual zone climate, but luckily this one was. And then of course I get where to send it off to the left, fan speed off to the right. Down below that, I get 2 climate control vents, and the radio, our awesome theft lock radio I found in a lot of other W bodies, as well as the C5 Corvette gets the same radio. Then I get a giant cubby for, I guess, really anything I want. And then we come down to the shifter area. In front of the shifter, I do get a 12-volt outlet, and then the shifter itself is pretty tall, very parts bin GM. However, I like it, still working. And it says apply brake to shift into park. I like that spelled out text in case you forgot. Then I do have an ashtray and a cup holder. So we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the 98 Monte Carlo. And unfortunately, the bottle will sit in here fine, but as soon as you take a corner, the lip isn't tall enough and the bottle will fall over. So unfortunately, I do have to give it a fail. However, it is very, very close to passing. It's just a little too shallow. Then I do get a center console and the seats. You could get leather or cloth in the Monte Carlo. These are cloth, and I think that they hold up way better in terms of a 24-year-old car. I think these just look a lot better than what the leather seats of the same year look like today in 2022. So I'm a big fan of them. I find them very comfortable. They are decently sporty as well, and that's all fine and dandy. But speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a backseat review. All right, we're in the back of the 1998 Chevy Monte Carlo. A couple of things to note. First of all, I do get center, like fold out little, or I guess one center fold out armrest. Knee room, great. Headroom, not fantastic. I am 5'11" and my head is hitting the ceiling. It's not amazing. For kids, this is going to be a perfect back seat. They're going to feel like they're in the back of a Rolls Royce. But I, unfortunately, no matter what I tell my pediatrician, I am unfortunately not a kid. So I don't really fit really all that good back here. But it's still manageable. If I had to sit back here on the way to a football game or something like that, I wouldn't complain too much. I just might have a stiff neck when I get there. Let's hop out. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space. Then we'll talk about the looks. All right, so we're on the back of the Monte Carlo. Now, interestingly enough, this is still the era, 1998, and they made this through 99, that I have two different keys. This silver key is for the trunk, while this black key is for the ignition. So pop it up just like that, and we do get a fairly large trunk out of the Monte Carlo. One of my favorite things about American cars of this era is just how flippin' huge the trunk is, and you can unscrew this. That's where your spare tire is and things like that. Overall, not too much to say about the trunk. However, it is really, really fantastic. Now we got to talk about the looks. And I personally actually really like the look of this Monte Carlo. However, I know that it was met with harsh criticism when it first came out because it was an aero body, more rounded design of the Monte Carlo as opposed to the ones that came previously. So there is that. However, this was designed by Chuck Jordan, who worked for GM for a long, long time. He's actually responsible for helping design the 1959 Cadillac, one of the most iconic tail fin cars. He also designed a bunch of Opals. He did the 93 to 96 Cadillac Fleetwood, the 94 to 99 Cadillac DeVille, and his last car that he designed before retiring and unfortunately passing away in 2010 was the final generation of the Chevy Cavalier. Same guy designed that car as designed this car. But also something interesting is that his son, Mark Jordan, was on the team that helped design the NA Miata for Mazda. The original Mazda Miata was designed by this designer's son. I thought that was a cool little fact for you. But anyway, let's get on to my final thoughts here on the Monte Carlo, and boy, do I have a lot. Well, first I want to talk about this particular car. People kind of resented this generation of Monte Carlo when it came out. Like I said, because of that aero rounded body, because it was front wheel drive, and because there wasn't a super sporty version. There was no SS of this generation. You could get this, the LS, or you could do the Z24, which, yeah, got you that bigger V6, but there wasn't a supercharged option. There wasn't a V8 option like owners had previously come to know and love from the Monte Carlo. And part of that is because this car had NASCAR heritage. The Monte Carlo throughout the 80s was known. Dale Earnhardt drove a Monte Carlo. This was known for motorsport. And so, because it was given that sort of headline, people expected it to be very motorsport oriented, and it's not. This car is not quick, it's not agile, it's not going to impress you on a back road. But if you reframe your thinking just a little bit and think not sports car, but you think personal luxury vehicle, well, now stuff seems to make a little bit more sense. Like I said, we talk about it later, and now's the time. This fake wood accent in here, it says Monte Carlo in clear, easy to read script. It's very classy. This car was a nice vehicle that anyone in middle management could afford. Someone who's doing okay at their job, yeah, you know, let me buy a Monte Carlo. I don't have a family yet. I don't need the back seats, but I'd like to treat myself a little bit. I don't want to drive another Cavalier. I don't want to drive a Ford Escort. I want to drive something a little bit bigger, something a little bit nicer with a V6. I don't want a 4-cylinder. Well, that's what the Monte Carlo was for. And that's what this car does so well. So that was talking point number one. My second one is why I love these cars so much And I was trying to think of a good analogy, and here's what I landed on. I love 80s and 90s GMs. They're my absolute favorite era of GMs, and I'm not saying for any reason other than nostalgia. I understand the build quality of a 90s GM car is not great. The performance in terms of their competitors, also not great. For no other reason than my own personal enjoyment, the 80s and 90s for GM is my favorite. And so this is edging on sort of the end of that era, because when they got into the 2000s and then the recession hit, I don't like GMs. I don't like modern GMs. I frame it like this: 80s and early 90s GMs, like the Beretta I drove, the Cimarron, the Cavalier wagon, that to me is Avengers Endgame. That was the peak of the peak at the time. To me, that's my favorite. That's my best. This car to me is like Spider-Man No Way Home. It came after the favorite, the best part, the best ones, but it still retained some of that magic. No Way Home was a fantastic movie and continued the hype after Infinity War and Endgame in the Marvel movie series. But now, I don't even recognize the stuff that's coming out today. I have no interest in it. It doesn't tickle my fancy like the cars that used to. Now, there's still a demographic for those cars, and I'm not saying they're inherently bad. I just don't find interest in them. I like this stuff. This stuff brings me the most happiness. This era of GM is just this sweet, warm, embracing hug of an automobile. And I hesitate to use the word embrace as we get on to my third and final talking point. And that talking point would be that a little TV channel named TLC back in 2012 aired an episode of their very popular series, My Strange Addiction, where in that episode, a man fell in love with his car and proclaimed to the world that he was in a relationship with it. That car was a 1998 Chevy Monte Carlo, and I assume in this same trim level. Now, his was red. This one is not red. This is not the car from that series. However, this car shared an Ontario assembly line with that famous red Monte Carlo. Some people really love their cars. Some people really love these Monte Carlos. I don't want to touch it again. Ugh. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Tom for letting me take out his Monte Carlo. This thing is really cool. I've never driven a 5th gen, and Tom has given me that opportunity. I've reviewed a bunch of Tom's cars in the past. I did his Forester, his Cadillac Fleetwood, and one of my all-time favorite reviews ever, a 1960s Plymouth Belvedere that was 3 on the tree. That was also owned by Tom as well. So, huge thank you to him. He's been a huge help to the channel over the years, and I cannot wait to see what he brings home next. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.